was also the beginning of the Mark Twain Zephyr from St. Louis to Burlington.
Ralph Budd and my grandfather was interested in stainless steel.
I don't know how he got in contact, but now enter part 2 of the story, the Mark Twain Zephyr.
I really hope that my first train ride is on the Zephyr.
Thanks so much for joining us for another update on MarkTwainZephyr.com. Also our Facebook and Twitter pages at Mark Twain Zephyr. I'm Robert Tabor, Director of Passenger Development for the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad, and it is great to have you along for another one of our Sunday video updates on the Mark Twain Zephyr. It is December 5th, 2021, and boy, we have an action-packed, exciting update for you this Sunday from up here at the railroad. The beginning phases of the engine transplant between the 1280 and the Injun Joe of the Mark Twain Zephyr has taken place by removing the front truck and transporting it over to the Injun Joe. Operations Manager here at the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad, Nick Turinetti, does the play-by-play for us.
So really the first step in what Jimmy is doing with the 1280 is, if you remember back, probably almost a year ago now, we lifted Injun Joe and put a truck underneath the front of it. And that truck was not functional. So it came out from, it's a truck from underneath a switching locomotive, kind of similar to the 1280, that we have a pair of on hand that hasn't had a use for a while. And when we started the project and thinking about how to power Injun Joe, we looked at this particular model of truck. It's called an AAR, and AAR is American Association of Railroads. So, and that's just what it's called in the industry. So we had this truck that was non-functional, and what we did is we put it underneath Injun Joe to get an idea of how it would fit, because it's quite a bit longer from front to back than the original power truck was. Some of the things like some parts of the brakes are in different locations than the original truck was. So what it's basically doing is seeing how it'll fit and what modifications we have to do to it. So what Jimmy did is actually, now that we're at the phase of starting to remove components from the 1280 and get ready to install them on the Zephyr itself, he took that truck that we had test fit before.
And that's the one we're seeing on our screen right now.
Yes, and when it's not easy to tell the difference between the two of them, but the truck that was under the 1280 is actually in much better shape. It's got nicer paint. So if you the dirty one is the one
that's the one we're watching him take out right now.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. And so what he did is he removed it from the location we had stored it after we had test fit it, and he is setting it on the same track that the 1280 is sitting on.
Okay.
With the idea being is that once he's removed the truck that is currently underneath it, we can just roll it underneath, and it's ready to go.
Okay. Well, now we see the 1280 all hooked up, and it looks like it's about to be lifted.
Yep. And what's kind of neat about our operation is that we have a whole mess of cranes available to do activities like this, and that's actually pretty unique in the heritage railroad or tourist railroad industry. Most of the time we would need to, another organization would probably need to hire an outside firm for cranes like this.
Yeah, rental is not cheap from what I heard, Nick.
No. So the figure I've heard before is some places don't answer the phone for less than 10 grand. So
wow.
It is a pricey proposition, and the bigger the crane, the bigger the price, etc.
Okay.
We happen to own a pair of cranes that are really, really helpful for this type of activity. And the orange one that you've probably seen before, it's a Kershaw crane. Kershaw was the manufacturer. It was originally built and used for picking up rail cars. So we have one that was a recent addition to the railroad. And the other one that's probably even more unusual is the X7.
Yeah.
And the X7 is our big former Masabi crane. It's maroon.
It's the little monster.
Yes, the Masabi little monster.
Yes.
And it's really, really cool because it's a 250-ton brown hoist crane. So it has a lifting capacity of 250 tons.
Wow.
It was originally built as a steam-powered crane and was bought in 1941 by the Duluth Masabi and Iron Range for the express purpose of picking up their really big Yellowstone locomotives if they ever went on the ground.
I thought it was to get me out of my chair after my Thanksgiving dinner.
There are many uses for the crane.
Okay.
So
All right.
what's really neat about the X7 is that it is still fully functional. It is still capable of lifting 250 tons in a pinch. And we have used it quite a bit in the past few months. I think you saw we had a video of unloading 2 different passenger cars using it. It is extremely helpful. And this project is much easier to accomplish with it. So.
Well, so now we see it being partially lifted, and it looks like Jimmy and his nephew, who's helping him out here, are going underneath the train, and it looks like there's cables on both sides of the wheels here, and it looks like they're either splitting them in two or taking them off. What exactly is this, Nate?
Yeah. So it may be a little strange to believe, but the trucks on a locomotive, and in fact most pieces of rail equipment, are actually only held in place by gravity. So it's just the weight of the car, the weight of the engine, matched to that little cup in the truck and the bolster on the locomotive or the car, fitting together, and that's what holds most pieces of rail equipment in place like that.
Okay.
Locomotives sometimes have what are called shoes that sort of slide over a portion of the frame that help keep it in place, and that's one of the things that Jimmy is removing to accomplish this. But the main thing that he's down there dealing with are traction motor cables.
Oh, that's what what we're looking at him right now under the train.
Correct.
Okay.
And so what those cables do is they provide electrical power from the generator down to the traction motors, and there are traction motors mounted on each axle.
Okay.
We actually had to swap out the truck underneath another one of our locomotives earlier this summer, and we used the Kershaw to lift that and pull the truck out, send it out, get it back, and then put it back together. So I have a little bit of experience myself in disconnecting and reconnecting traction motor cables, and they're without the locomotive being lifted a bit, they're bare. It's a very tight space to work in. You kind of need to be able to manipulate, and they're very thick, heavy cables. They're dealing with 600 volts of electricity in some cases. So
So that's why he pulled it partial way up, so he could get under there.
And in the 1280 and other switchers in general like that are kind of they're more it's more compact in there than even other diesels because their frame is basically flat.
Okay.
And it's a flat slab of steel that everything is sitting on, and so there's not a whole lot of room between the truck and the bottom of the locomotive. You need that room to be able to actually manipulate the cables.
Okay. Well, now it looks like he's raising the engine here a little bit more. They got the cables done, and it looks like they have it looks like a skid steer with some chains, and it looks like they're pulling the trucks out now.
Yep, it's a lot easier to move a truck with another piece of equipment. You can roll them by hand, but it's not really an easy way to get them out. The other thing too, it's kind of neat. You can probably see that we're lifting the locomotive by its coupler. The coupler is actually probably one of the strongest points on the entire locomotive. That part of the frame is intended to transmit a lot of forces. So some locomotives have rings or points that you can lift on the frame. When they don't, the X7 actually comes with a whole variety of tools. That's what's in the little flat car along with it, and one of which is a yoke that sits underneath the coupler. It gives you a perfect lifting surface that you can just pick it up that way.
Nice, and it looks like the last part that we're going to get to see here, it looks like it's getting a little bit of dark out there, but it looks like they're lifting the the 1280, that truck, they're lifting it up and they're putting it on the back of a semi. So what is that? What's going on here?
Yep. So that's the truck then that's going to be used underneath the Mark Twain Zephyr. We're probably going to relocate it to a facility where we can go through it, make sure it's in top condition, and it's ready to go back underneath the 9903 when we've finished getting it ready, putting the engine in it, all the other parts that are going to come along with it. But being able to do this shift now basically takes care of it. It gets us a little bit of practice for using X7 and the other equipment, and it's the next step in the process for things like removing the hood and getting ready to lift the engine.
Sounds good. And I know starting with our January updates, you're going to be taking us through, and I think you're going to be doing a 3-part series for us coming up in January about the 1280 and some of the process that lies ahead. So are you doing that? You're doing that for us, right?
Yeah. And I had a great time and getting it ready, and there's a lot of interesting little points within the locomotive. It's pretty unique in the fact that it's one of only 15 of that model built, and it is going to provide us an excellent platform on which the Mark Twain Zephyr will be able to function.
Awesome. Well, we'll look for. I think you'll start that series on January 9th for us. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks. Catch you guys later.
All right, thanks so much, Nick, for the exciting play-by-play there of the front truck removal of the 1280. And, of course, we will be keeping you updated on all the engine transplant excitement over the coming weeks and months here at the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad, so tune in on our Sunday updates. Let's check in with Bob, who did some work this week on both the Effie Dean and the Tom Sawyer.
Hey! We're in the Effie Dean. We just got the subfloor set in there today. We're working around, temperature-wise, it ain't supposed to go below freezing tonight. This will set out. We'll tape all of the seams tomorrow. And then next week, I plan to do all the tile work. In accordance with getting this done, we finally come up with something for heat in here, because the heat that we originally had designed, somewhere along the line, the design of the benches and the booths were a little bit different. It was just off. And what we had set up for heat wouldn't work. So Greg come up with these here. These will go underneath these booth seats. And this here will be one. There'll be another one like those. And then the booths,
so keep your feet nice and toasty.
Yeah, and then the booths here that are just open will have a regular standard heater underneath each window. And because there's no way of putting them in these horseshoe booths because it's all closed in. There'll be another in here, and then on those sides across, we'll have them little blower ones in, and then there'll be 2 30-inch ones on this side here. And hopefully the bulk of that is done between tomorrow and Friday. That way it's just so much easier when we tile next week to have heat in here. Still the underneath side still gets cold, so we'll have to drape some blankets and towels or big drop cloths, canvas cloths around the nose of it up there, and we'll blow heat in it overnight just to keep the underside from freezing. But that will all be tiled next week.
All right, so we'll get to see that next week?
Yeah, we can go look at the Tom Sawyer ceilings.
All right, let's go look.
Yeah, on thanks. I told you I worked because I had some Thanksgiving with my family the weekend before. So I came in on Thanksgiving.
That's quadruple overtime for you, Bob.
I settled for time and a half.
Oh, all right.
I'm dedicated. But this year, ceiling was put in on Thursday, between Thursday and Friday. I'll be able to put the lights in. That's all wired.
Is that mostly is it wood then?
It's wood, and this will be an access panel. And then in all 4 corners, there's just going to be a real fancy piece of oak that fits down into all 4 corners. And it'll be the same in there because that ceiling is done now too. This is where we had to take it apart for the air conditioning. And there's that ceiling. And I was right when you came over, I got the doors and the frames are all built for here. I was just working on the hinges. Those hopefully will be on this week too.
Well, we'll hinge you on it. Boy, I tell you.
It's a hinging situation.
Awesome. It looks
But
nice
the
though. The
lights will be in
vestibule
here.
ceilings.
Yeah, lights will be in here this week, and I mean, after the bathroom doors are in, this car's pretty much done.
Exciting. All right. Thanks so much, Bob. And we will check back in with you next week on Sunday, December the 12th, as work continues on some of the cars. Sounds like we have some tile work and other work coming up. We'll keep you updated next week on that. We also want to mention that we have some exciting interviews coming up over the holidays. You can tune in December 19th, December 26th, and January 2nd. We'll be doing a 3 series of interviews. We'll be talking with the granddaughter of Edward Budd, the great-grandson of Ralph Budd, as well as the daughter of Albert Dean, the designer of the Zephyr, and of his wife, Effie Dean, whose the car is named after. All that will be coming up over the holidays on our Sunday updates, December 19th, the 26th, and January 2nd. So mark your calendars, and we look forward to bringing you those interviews, and hope everybody else has a great week out there.
Thanks so much for joining us for another update on the Mark Twain Zephyr at the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad. Before you leave, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do this by clicking on the red subscribe button. That way, you'll be among the first to know when we post our next update. And be sure to check out marktwainzephyr.com, where we post additional content during the week. You can also watch previous update videos you might have missed. We are also on Facebook and Twitter at Mark Twain Zephyr.
It was so far ahead of its time. It was going to be made out of stainless steel.
Did he design the whole train?
He designed the whole train. Didn't he?
The Mark Twain Zephyr was so crowded, she would have to stand between Quincy and him.
The stainless steel cars, and I at that age and young, and how bright it was, and